English 011. Ms. Brewer here for your week 2 lecture video. So this week we are going to talk about literary elements. You should be reading a novel for your English 111 class, and you will kind of need to have this understanding of literary elements to be able to analyze your novel whenever you write your analysis piece for that class. So I want to talk about literary elements this week. We're going to talk about point of view, which is really important when we look at writing. So we'll talk about that. And then you guys are going to take a grammar diagnostic test this week and reflect on that. So it's okay if you get things wrong. Don't stress out about it. Just do the best that you can. We want to see where you are grammar-wise for the class, so we can kind of build for the upcoming weeks on how we address grammar in this class. So if you can, just go ahead and have your Moodle open. And you're going to want to go to this week, August 31st to September 6th, and open up our Literary Elements PowerPoint lesson so you can follow along with me. Feel free to take notes as you follow along for things that I say that may not be in the PowerPoint that you want to jot down, so you don't have to keep coming back to this particular video. Okay, so just to kind of start out, what is a literary element? A literary element is a device that's incorporated into the literature, and it helps to deepen your experience reading the literature and to deepen your understanding of the literature. So it's really important to understand the basic elements just so you can understand the story in general. And then when you get into like figurative language and things like that, that kind of helps deepen your understanding of the story. So basic literary elements, you're looking at the characters. Who are the characters? Who's the main character? How are they telling the story? What point of view is the story being told in? Which we'll talk about point of view here in a minute. Why is it important that this person is telling the story? And then character motivation is really important. So why are characters making the choices that they're making? Why are they doing what they're doing? Everybody is motivated by something, and all of your characters are going to be motivated by something as well. Also, when you look at characters, you have characterization. So you might want to be writing this down since it's not in the PowerPoint. But characterization is just how the author tells you about the characters. So you have direct characterization, where the author straight up says, they were evil, they were a villain, this is how they are, okay? And then you have indirect characterization, which is what you're most often gonna run into, particularly in novels. Unless, you know, your main person is just telling you how they are. So indirect characterization is the way that someone presents themselves, the way that other people talk about them, and then you kind of learn about that character and what they're like indirectly. The author doesn't come straight out and tell you. The setting is super important. So where does the story take place? When does it take place? Why is the setting important to the story, okay, to the plot of the story? So you really need to understand where things are happening, when they are happening, all right? That really influences what happens in the story. The plot is, of course, what happens. So, you know, I'm sure you guys have seen a plot structure, which is technically called Freytag's Pyramid. You don't really need to know that, but, and that's just where you have, you know, your exposition, your rising action, you have a climax that you're reaching towards, and then you have your denouement, or like, you know, the falling action, okay, as you come down to the closure of the story. All right, so you need to plot point sometimes what's happening to understand how it's all building to the major climax of the story. And of course you'll have little peaks and valleys when you're reading a novel, all right, but there's always like a big moment in your story, usually near the end, that we're building towards, okay? And so you want to be able to identify that. And then of course there will be many conflicts in your novel, but there also is like a major conflict, okay? What is the major conflict, and then what are the mini conflicts that continue to happen through the plot to keep the story going? All right, so those are your basic literary elements. Of course, figurative language is used, it's especially used in poetry, but it is also used in novels, okay? And this helps to deepen your understanding, make connections, create images and pictures in your mind as you read. So it helps you to kind of be able to pick these out and to analyze them, especially when you're looking at overarching things, theme, those types of things, which is kind of what you'll be utilizing as you analyze the piece of literature as a whole. Okay, so it's really important to understand figurative language specifically when you're reading poetry, but in any literature. So there's some basic figurative language that you should probably already know from being in high school / middle school, maybe even elementary school they start talking about this stuff. So of course you have your basics like your metaphor and your simile, which are comparing unlike things, either using like or as or not. Symbols are really important when you're analyzing literature and when you're going to write an analysis essay. You can pick out symbolism and you can write a whole paper on symbolism. So finding symbols, finding something that is like standing for something else is super important, okay? So as you read, see if you can't pick out like, oh, this could be symbolic for somebody finding their voice, or symbolic for feeling oppression, or symbolic for feeling, different. What is it? What is this symbolic of? An allusion is often used in literature and in novels, and that's when you're talking about something else that people would know. Like you're talking about a famous person, a famous event. You're talking about music or books or things like that, they allude to it, and making that connection is important. Understanding that allusion is important to understand what's going on in the story. So if there is an allusion made and you don't know what it is, for instance, if they mention something in a Bible verse that you're not familiar with, it might help you to look that up and learn it and then see how it relates to the story. They're mentioning it for a reason. They're making the allusion for a reason. Imagery creates an image in your mind, and usually it uses one of the 5 senses. So they'll be describing things either visually with the sight, a smell, a feel, a taste, okay, those types of things. Hearing something, you hear a sound, and when it's written, it's described as like a high-pitched police siren, right? You know what that sounds like, and you can kind of almost hear it in your mind. Personification is when we give non-human things human abilities or qualities, and hyperbole is like a deliberate exaggeration. So anytime you're reading like satire or funny things, you might see hyperbole in there. So as you read, don't worry about looking for figurative language and picking it out, but be able to analyze it, okay? So be able to look for it later and analyze how figurative language might be used, okay? As you are reading, make sure you're making note of major things that are happening, major topics, major ideas that keep on popping up through your book, because you're going to be able to use that later when you need to write an analysis of that particular piece of literature. It is imperative that you take notes and you annotate when you're reading. So you guys the books might be good and you might be enjoying them, but the purpose of reading the book is because you're going to analyze it later. So make sure that you're preparing for that analysis by taking notes, by using sticky notes and putting it in the book as you read, or dog-earing pages, writing in the book, highlighting if you're going to keep it. That's super helpful when it comes time to write a paper later on. So just knowing those literary elements will help you when it's time to write your analysis paper. For point of view, it's just important to know the difference between first person, second person, and third person. So make sure you're reviewing this information. Anytime we write, we're going to be writing in third person when it's formal writing. Now, if it's a journal and things like that, it doesn't need to be in third person. But what we really want to avoid is writing in second person, right? So you don't want to address me and tell me what I would think by using the word you. So it's really important to think about that and write either in first person if you're talking about your own reflection, or in third person if it's a formal piece of writing. So it's really important that we understand that. Okay, moving on. You guys are going to, this week, complete the diagnostic test. You have 60 minutes to complete the test. Make sure you complete it by September 6th, but remember that you need to do the journal reflection after you complete the test, so you want to try to get that taken care of. Don't stress out about the fact that it's called a test. It's a diagnostic test, so that means that we are seeing where you stand in regard to your grammar and understanding of format and understanding of writing and those types of things. So you'll complete the test first, then do the reflection. And then you have an assignment for literary elements. So whatever book you're reading for English 111, that's what you're going to utilize to complete your literary elements assignment. And I just want you to write a paragraph. and I want that paragraph to kind of answer those questions, okay? So do the best you can to kind of put that paragraph together, and we're going to talk about paragraph development next week, so just do the best you can with that. But identifying the book, who are the main characters, understand that when you identify a book, it should always be by title and author, so make sure you're mentioning both. Who are the main characters? What is the setting? Any conflicts up to this point in your reading, can you make note of them? And then what are some main ideas or topics that you see kind of coming to the forefront that the author is talking about in the book? Go ahead and write that and turn that in. That will be very helpful for you later on when you look at analyzing your literature for your analysis essay. So that's what you're going to complete this week. For your attendance assignment, what I would like for you to do is to explain my late policy. So what is the late policy as outlined in the syllabus? I do not want you to copy and paste this. I want you to summarize it in your own words. So just tell me what is the basic late policy for the course. And you can find that information in the syllabus. So you'll go back to our syllabus and look up late work procedures and summarize that. And that will be your attendance assignment for the week. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me via email, or you can give me a call during my office hours, and make sure you kind of just are asking questions as they come up. And I will check in with you guys next week. Have a great week.